Hello there everybody and welcome back to another EDH gameplay video brought to you by Affinity for Commander. My name is Martin and today we have a game for you involving a two-mouthed serpent, an unholy cleric, the first vampire of Innistrad and the avatar of dragonkind. But before we begin, I'd like to personally thank all of the absolutely amazing patrons listed on screen for their heartwarming generosity. We wouldn't be able to continue making videos such as these without your support, so thank you. Also, if you decide to make a purchase from any of these websites, then be sure to do so via our affiliate links in the video description. It won't cost you anything extra, but it really helps out the channel. And if you haven't already, then go and check out altersleeves.com, where you can find thousands of super cool designs on perfect fit sleeves to really bling out your decks. Just be sure to quote us as the ones who sent you. But that is enough of that. Let's take a look at those opening hands.
I am playing my Edgar Markov deck, which aims to get as much use out of his Eminence ability as possible by running a ton of vampires. In addition to this, I also play a decent amount of removal to keep my opponent's creatures at bay, and also run a token sub-theme to strengthen the vampires that Edgar creates. I keep an opening hand of Arcane Signet, Boros Charm, Go for the Throat, Terminate, Evolving Wilds, Unclaimed Territory, and Godless Shrine.
Tom is playing his Kaalia of the Vast deck, which, as you can probably guess, focuses on three main creature types: angels, demons, and dragons. Yes, Tom runs the most powerful creatures available in these tribes without having to worry about whether or not he has the mana to cast them thanks to his commander's ability. He keeps a starting hand of Boros Signet, Terminate, Solemn Simulacrum, Lyra Dawnbringer, Dragon Mage, Smouldering Marsh, and a Swamp.
Kat is playing her Verazol the Split Current deck, which tries to make spells with kicker costs actually worth the mana they require. She is also playing a +1/+1 counters matter sub-theme and runs a decent ramp package to help her cast her spells' additional costs. Kat's opening hand consists of Regrowth, Maddening Cacophony, Saproling Invasion, Territorial Allosaurus, Command Tower, Mosswort Bridge, and Thornwood Falls.
And finally, Connor is playing his The Dragon deck, surprising nobody with its dragon tribal theme. Similarly to Kat, he runs a lot of ramp to get his scaly boys onto the field as quickly as possible, as well as the best tribal cards available in all 5 colours. Connor's opening hand contains Smothering Tithe, Clouth Unrivaled Ancient, Command Tower, Grove of the Burn Willows, Woodland Cemetery, Smouldering Marsh, and a Mountain. Tom goes first, playing Smouldering Marsh, and passes to Kat.
Kat plays Mosswort Bridge, exiling one of the top 4 cards of her library below it. With nothing more to do, she passes the turn.
Connor plays Savai Triome and ends his turn.
I play Evolving Wilds and pass to Tom.
Tom plays a Swamp and casts Boros Signet. Out of mana, he passes the turn.
Kat plays Command Tower and taps out to cast Saproling Infestation. She then ends her turn, to which I respond by sacrificing my Evolving Wilds to put a Mountain into play. With no further interruptions, Connor proceeds to his turn.
Connor plays Blood Crypt, having it entered tapped, and passes to Martin.
In my turn, I play Unclaimed Territory, naming Vampire. Next I cast Arcane Signet and pass the turn.
Tom plays a Mountain and casts Solemn Simulacrum. He puts a Plains into play from his library and ends his turn.
Kat plays an island and casts her commander, Verazol the Split Current. The Serpent enters with 3 +1/+1 counters on it, and Kat passes to Connor.
Connor plays an unclaimed territory of his own, choosing dragons, and passes.
I play Godless Shrine, paying 2 life to have it enter untapped, and tap out to cast Sorin, Lord of Innistrad. I activate his +1 ability, creating a 1/1 vampire token with lifelink, and end my turn.
Tom misses his land drop and casts his commander, Kaalia of the Vast. With nothing more to do, he passes to Kat.
Kat plays Thornwood Falls, gaining a life, and casts Jiang Yangu, Wildcrafter. She activates the Walker's -1 ability, putting another +1/+1 counter on her commander, and passes the turn.
Connor plays Command Tower and casts Smothering Tithe.
Ew.
Out of mana, he ends his turn.
I choose not to pay the Smothering Tithe tax, and Connor creates a treasure token as a result. Next I play Temple of Triumph, keeping the top card of my library where it is, and activate Soren's -2 ability. This creates me an emblem that gives my creatures a permanent +1/+0 buff, which I'm sure you'll agree isn't bad for such a low cost ability. Not yet finished, I cast Terminate, destroying Kaalia before she gets a chance to cheat any huge creatures into play. Pleased with my turn, I pass to Tom.
Connor creates a treasure in Tom's drawstep, and Tom plays a Plains. Next, Tom casts Blood Gift Demon, a creature I'm sure he would have preferred to put into play for free with Kaalia, and passes the turn.
Connor creates another treasure in Cat's turn, and Cat plays Evolving Wilds. She then casts Roost of Drakes, paying the spell's kicker cost, and removes 2 counters from her commander to create a copy of the enchantment. Cat creates 2 2/2 Drakes with flying thanks to her Roosts, as well as a 1/1 Sapperling from her Sapperling infestation.
I can see this getting out of hand rather quickly.
Happy with her board state, Cat ends her turn.
Connor begins his turn by playing Woodland Cemetery, and then casts Clouth Unrivaled Ancient. Moving to combat, he attacks Soren with a Hasty Dragon, and Martin responds by casting Go for the Throat, killing the winged lizard in a very thematic way.
I try my best.
Cloud's attack trigger then resolves with Connor adding 4 green mana to his pool. He then moves to his second main phase where he uses this mana to cast Explosive Vegetation, searching his library for a Plains and an island. Connor puts these lands into play tapped and passes to Martin.
I refuse to pay for Smothering Tithe, creating Connor a treasure, and play a swamp. Next I tap out to cast my commander, Edgar Markov, and then move to combat. Here I attack Connor with my Vampiric Knight, triggering his ability and putting a +1/+1 counter on both of my creatures. Unable to block, Connor takes 6 damage, and I move to my second main phase. Here I activate Soren's +1 ability, creating another 1/1 of lifelink, and instantly regret not doing this before combat.
Oh, whoopsie.
Whoopsie indeed. Cringing from my mistake, I pass the turn.
Tom targets himself with Blood Gift Demon's ability in his upkeep, drawing a card and losing a life. This creates Connor a treasure, and Tom lets him make another treasure when he draws a turn.
Man, I hate Smothering Tithe.
You and most of the player base. Next, Tom casts Lyra Dawnbringer and moves to combat. Here he attacks Soren with his demon, lowering his loyalty to 0 and sending him to the graveyard. Satisfied with his attack, Tom ends his turn, and Cat responds by sacrificing her Evolving Wilds. She puts a forest onto the battlefield and moves to her turn.
Cat draws, gifting Connor with a treasure, and activates her Planeswalker's -1 ability. She puts a +1/+1 counter on her Sapperling, then taps all of her lands as well as both of her counter-owning creatures to cast Territorial Allosaurus, paying its kicker cost. Cat then removes 2 +1/+1 counters from Verazol to copy the spell, reducing the Serpent's toughness to 0, destroying him. She then resolves her multitude of triggers, creating 2 more Drakes, a Sapperling, having 1 dinosaur fight Edgar and the other fight Lyra. All 4 creatures involved in skirmishes are destroyed, Tom gains 5 life from his Angel's lifelink, and Cat plays Oran Reef the Vastwood as her land for turn. Pleased with her turn, she passes to Connor.
Connor plays a mountain and casts Sarkhan's Unsealing. He then sacrifices 5 treasures and taps his remaining lands to cast his commander, the Dragon, triggering his newly played enchantment ability. Martin, Tom, and Cat each take 4 damage, along with each creature and planeswalker they control. This completely wipes the board of all other creatures, reduces Jiang Yangu's loyalty to 0, and allows Tom to draw a card from his Sad Robot's death trigger. Connor misses his Smothering Tithe's trigger when Tom draws, failing to make a treasure, and sacrifices his remaining 2 treasure to cast Lightning Greaves. He immediately attaches the Shiny Shoes to his commander, moves to combat, and attacks Martin with his dragon. Connor draws a card with the Dragon's ability, putting Grove of the Burn Willows onto the battlefield, and Martin takes 10 commander damage. Happy with his position in the game, Connor passes the turn.
I draw, letting Connor create a treasure, and cast Sorin, Solemn Visitor.
How many Sorins do you run in that deck?
Literally all of them. I activate the Planeswalker's -2 ability, creating a 2/2 vampire token with flying, and play Rakdos Carnarium as my land for turn. I return a swamp to my hand with the land's ETB, and end my turn.
Tom draws, Connor makes a treasure, and Tom casts Reanimate. He returns Solemn Simulacrum to the battlefield in this way, losing 4 life, and putting a swamp into play tapped with the Golem's ETB. Keeping a suspicious amount of mana open, Tom passes to Cat.
Connor creates a treasure in Cat's draw step, and Cat plays an island as her land for turn. Next she recasts her commander, who enters with 7 +1/+1 counters, and passes the turn.
Connor starts his turn by moving straight to combat, attacking Cat with his commander. Connor draws a card from the Dragon's ability, putting Goldspan Dragon into play, and Cat takes 10 damage. With the treasures he creates from Smothering Tithe now generating 2 mana each, Connor ends his turn.
In my upkeep, Tom casts Terminate, targeting Goldspan Dragon. Having clearly played too much Magic Arena, Connor forgets that the paper version of the card creates a treasure when it becomes the target of a spell, and lets a lizard die without making one. I then draw, Connor remembers to create a treasure, and I play a swamp. Next I recast my commander and activate Sorin's +1 ability. My vampires get +1/+0 and lifelink until my next turn, and I move to combat. Here I attack Connor with Edgar, triggering his ability and putting a +1/+1 counter on both of my creatures. Unable to block, Connor takes 7, and I gain 7 thanks to Edgar's lifelink. Now possessing a healthier life total, I pass to Tom.
Connor totally forgets about his Smothering Tithe trigger in Tom's draw step, and Tom casts Dragon Tempest. Once again, keeping mana open, he passes the turn.
Cat lets Connor create a treasure in her draw step, and then casts Sphinx of Lost Truths. She kicks the spell and removes 2 counters from her commander in order to copy it, which, when all is said and done, leaves her with 2 3/5 Sphinxes, 2 2/2 Drakes, a 1/1 Sapperling, and 6 new cards in her hand.
Not too shabby.
Out of mana, Cat has no choice but to let Connor create 6 treasure tokens, and then plays an island. She then taps this to cast Sol Ring and moves to combat. Here she takes the opportunity to wail on Connor, attacking him with Verazol and dealing him 5 damage. With nothing more to do, Cat ends her turn.
Connor sacrifices a treasure and taps 2 lands to cast Selvala, Heart of the Wilds.
Hey, that's not a dragon.
No, it is not. He considers moving to combat, but realises that he might not be able to survive the crackback, and passes to Martin instead.
Connor forgets to make a treasure in my draw step, and I cast Commander's Sphere. I then tap the sphere, adding a black mana to my mana pool, and sacrifice the orb to draw a card. Connor misses his trigger, and I play Path of Ancestry as my land for turn, before activating Sorin's +1 ability. Moving to combat, I attack Tom with Edgar, putting a +1/+1 counter on both of my creatures. Tom responds to this by flashing in Archangel Avacyn, granting all of his creatures indestructible. He blocks Edgar with the Angel, I gain 8 life, and with nothing more to do, I pass the turn.
Connor once again forgets about his tithe, and Tom casts Arcane Signet. Next he casts Karmic Guide, returning the Lyra Dawnbringer in his graveyard to the battlefield, and moves to combat. Here he attacks Cat with Avacyn and Lyra, the latter of which has haste thanks to Dragon Tempest. Cat blocks both of the angels with a Drake each, and Tom gains 10 life from his creature's lifelink. Out of mana, he ends his turn.
Cat draws, and Connor finally remembers to make a treasure with his enchantment.
About time.
Cat then casts Primal Growth, kicking the spell by sacrificing a Sapperling and removing 2 +1/+1 counters from her commander to copy it. Her collection of enchantments trigger, creating her a Sapperling and 2 Drakes, and Cat searches her library for 2 islands and 2 forests. she puts all 4 lands onto the battlefield and casts Rishgor, Pima Renegade. The Elf's ETB triggers and Cat puts a +1/+1 counter on both of her Sphinxes. Still not finished, Cat casts Maddening Cacophony, kicking the spell and copying it with Verazol. Everybody other than Cat mills half of their library, then half again, resulting in Tom, Connor and I each having only 20 cards left in our libraries.
Well, that escalated quickly.
Next, Cat taps Orenreef the Vastwood to put a +1/+1 counter on Rishgor and 1 on her Saprolings. Finally out of gas, Cat passes to Connor.
Sensing the end is nigh, Connor decides to go all out and casts Patriarch's Bidding. He chooses to return all of the dragons in his graveyard to the battlefield, Martin chooses the vampires in his, Tom chooses demons, and Cat chooses dinosaurs. Connor returns 21 dragons to the battlefield, including Terror of the Peaks, putting a game-winning amount of Terror of the Peak and Sargon's Unsealing triggers on the stack. Unfortunately for him though, Martin puts 31 vampires into play, one of which is revealed to be a Malakar Blood Witch. Her ETB is added to the stack, and the tutoring trigger from the Rune-Scarred Demon, resurrected from Tom's graveyard, is added as well. Cat's singular dinosaur lacks an ETB, and the stack begins to resolve. Tom searches his library, desperately looking for an answer to Connor and Martin's board state, but is sadly unable to find one in the 20 cards that he has left. Martin then responds to the Blood Witch's trigger by activating his Captivating Vampire's ability 6 times, gaining control of 6 of Connor's dragons and turning them into vampires. Not yet finished, he taps 5 of these vampiric lizards to steal another of Connor's creatures, meaning that Malakir Blood Witch would make Tom, Cat and Connor each lose 38 life, whilst Martin would gain 114. Seeing no way out of this, Tom responds to the ability by paying as much life as possible to his Doom Whisperer. The vampire's ability then resolves, knocking Tom, Cat and Connor out of the game and leaving Martin as the victor.
Well, that is it for another game. I hope that you enjoyed seeing a demonstration of why it's really important to check your opponent's graveyards before casting a reanimation spell that affects everybody. Don't forget that you can help to support the channel in 4 quick and easy ways: liking this video, subscribing, hitting the bell icon and leaving us a comment. I read every one. Also, if you really like us, then consider checking out our Patreon page, where you can find exclusive rewards such as custom tokens and playmats for as little as $1 a month. That's all for now though, we'll see you next time. Stay awesome!